process, all these brings us to another sphere where the bed in which religious fundamentalism and market fundamentalism cohabit. It's called the media. One of the things that we are ignoring and neglecting, हम सोचते हैं कि मीडिया का प्रॉब्लम ये एंकर है या वो एंकर है, ऐसा नहीं. That's not correct. Of course there are a couple of complete megalomaniac morons. वो अलग बात है. वो हर सेक्टर में है, पॉलिटिक्स में भी है ना, एजुकेशन में भी है. जहां आपका एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर एंड former education minister believe in Pushpak Vimanam in the time of Ram, a prime minister who believes in plastic surgery in the time of Ganesh and genetic engineering in the time of Mahabharata and Karna. So there are crazies in every sector, but something very fundamental has changed in the media. You will not recognize today's media as anything like the media of even 30 years ago, and a completely transformed media from that of the freedom struggle. There has been a sea change in ownership and structures. Please stop looking at the media as some autonomous entity or democratic institution in the country. It is a corporate entity. It is a corporate entity. You have to analyze it in that light. The media are moving very fast. They are the ones who have more to lose than freedom of expression, than anyone else, and they are the ones who have been the cheerleaders and the stormtroopers of the attacks. Not just picking up government stories, but generating doctored videos, framing people with false charges. To borrow a word from my friend Professor Prabhat Patnaik, there has been a major shift in the moral universe of the media. If the ownership changes, the rationale of media changes, you reduce journalism to a revenue stream from an instrument of social communication. Good journalism is a society at conversation with itself, a society in argument and debate with itself. That should be a major element of good journalism. But it has moved from there to a revenue stream. I know some people who have had great revenue models. Vijay Mallya had a great revenue model. सबको लूट किया, पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक को पूरी तरह लूट किया, उसका एम्प्लॉइज को लूट किया, और he is very happy and successful. I used to know, we all knew another man who had a very successful revenue model. His name was Veerappan. 40 साल वो revenue model चलाया यार. इतना थोड़ा सा डेंजर है, रिस्क है, लेकिन what is entrepreneurialism without a little risk? Higher the risk, higher the reward, कहता है ना इकोनॉमिस्ट. तो when you have reduced journalism completely to a revenue stream, अरे यार, would there be any work of art and literature in the world if you first needed a revenue model? If Valmiki was to get a revenue model cleared before he wrote the Ramayana, what Ramayana would you have had? If Shakespeare had to get a revenue model clarified by a board of chartered accountants before he wrote, Anthony and Cleopatra, what sort of literature would you have had? Yeah. Yes, nobody wants to make losses. Nobody. But when making profit is the only rationale of the media, then you have a very different media. And here is the central point of what I want to tell you today on the media. The biggest beneficiaries of the policy of privatization in the country, amongst the very biggest beneficiaries, are the owners of today's media corporations. Please look at who they are and what they are. The Indian media are politically free. I repeat, the Indian media are politically free but imprisoned by profit. Please look at who the media are. Post-corporatization, A gigantic media is now controlled by very few people. Who are the major groups? Who are the major corporate groups in the country? All of them are also having major media interests. Ambani's. Mukesh Bhai owns the biggest TV network in the country. Network 18, which includes 19 channels which you know as ETV, except for the Telugu ETV channels. ETV Marathi, ETV Gujarati, ETV Malayalam, Bengal, all are owned by Mukesh Ambani. Apart from CNN, IBN, Lokmat, the whole works. You take the Birlas, the Hindustan Times, other media interests. You take the Tatas and Tata Sky, which is a collaboration with Rupert Murdoch, which is a collaboration with Sky TV of Britain. Every one of them has huge interests in the privatization process that is unfolding. Every one of them has major interest in the so-called labor reforms brought about by this government. My old friend S.K. Pandey is sitting here, he will tell you of the Majitya Wage Board, upheld by the Supreme Court long ago, but now a major newspaper is implementing the Majitya Wage Board. Journalists are on strike in many places, you don't even find it reported in the newspapers. Journalists have walked out of work in some newspapers in the country, you don't even find that reported. There has been a complete change in what that entity called the media are. Also, please look, these major corporate owners, Ambani's, Birlas, Tatas, Jains, even privatization of education benefits them. The Jains are going to be starting the Bennett University, taken from the name Bennett, Coleman and Co., which owned the Times of India. None of those guys involved in the process has the faintest clue who the original Bennett was or how many years his bones have been dust. But Bennett, Coleman and Co. is a foreign sounding name. Bennett is a good brand name. It almost sounds like Benetton. Right? Actually, that came from Bennett, Coleman and Co. When I was a young journalist in Mumbai in the 80s, they used to be affectionately referred to in the tabloid press, not as Bennett, Coleman and Co., but as Bandit, Conman and Co. Now, now the same groups, please notice, when you're going to have privatization of spectrum, who benefits? Ambani's, Tata's, Mittals, all these people benefit from privatization. You're going to have privatization of mining, who benefits? Ambani's, Tata's, Birlas. You're going to have privatization of education. All of them are getting into the commercialized education sphere, accompanied by an attack on public funded education on campuses like JNU, Central University of Hyderabad, all public universities where the resistance is coming to the policies of this government and to the policies of neoliberalism. From this period has come the greatest scandals in the history of the Indian press called paid news, where over 1,000 crores of money was spent on presenting propaganda as news in the elections of 2009 and 2014. On one thing, Mr. Vijay Mallya is telling you the truth. On one thing, Mr. Mallya speaks the truth. When he says, those journalists who are attacking me should be careful. How many of them accepted my hospitality? I will reveal. I think he should. He should be encouraged to reveal because it is the truth. Today, some of the people who enjoyed that hospitality are writing against him and saying, 5 years ago I attended a party where he said this. Why did you not write it 5 years ago, boss? A media that has acted as touts for Monsanto and the GM lobby, never telling you that a Supreme Court appointed commission of top scientists in this country has asked for a moratorium on introduction of GM in food crop and other crops. They don't even tell you this, but they paint everybody as anti-science and technology, but share a bed with people who believe in genetic engineering in the time of Karna.